There, it's Doug Cunnington here. This is the Doug.Show live, and we're live on YouTube. So welcome. Let me know in the chat where you're from. Say hello. Let me know you could hear me. That's always good to double check that. You never know. I try to monitor that on my own. I do try to check ahead of time, but you never know until you go live. Even if you reboot your machine, all sorts of stuff like that. So today, we're going to do our normal thing here. It sounds like it's working. We're going to do our normal thing. We're going to talk a little bit about niche sites. We're going to hit some random stuff. We're going to talk about Pinterest. That's been on my mind a little bit more. And for the people that are on my email list, I know that you have been very interested in Pinterest. So we'll go into a couple details with that. And we see Chunky Moose and PP can hear me, so that is always good. I have been off of caffeine for a couple weeks almost, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit too, as I'm usually a big proponent of over-consuming caffeine in coffee. So yeah, I've been off caffeine, so I'm going to show you and talk about that a little bit as well. And I'll answer some random questions. We have David on as well, and video ranking guy. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. And I got to tell you, the last few weeks for these live streams, after a sort of a huge influx on, I guess, the wake and a little bit before the Amazon rate change, there were a lot of people on the live streams, and it sort of tapered down just a little bit. And I could tell, I have a few observations of maybe some of the content that I was publishing. I think a lot of people know, probably for the last quarter plus, I've been publishing long form interviews. I've generally been just creating the content that I'm enjoying creating, and then publishing clips. And there's a handful of people that like it too. And I've been able to sort of hone in on those things that people do like, because there's some pieces of content where I'm seeing less interaction. And then I will tell you, and I've sort of teased this for a little while, I'm always saying I'm quite busy with this or that, which I am. I always kind of create too much work for myself. But I realized that I generally have been ignoring any sort of keyword research. I'm just publishing videos that I want to publish. There's been okay growth, pretty much steady. I mean, my channel's still growing, but I know I'm leaving a lot of topics on the table where people want to hear from me. People want to have videos on certain things, and they happen to be keyword rich to bring in people that are actually searching on YouTube or even on Google. So I'm fingers crossed that I'll actually get some more traction once I go back to the core things that you have to do to build a channel and get more subscribers. That's not always the goal, by the way. So I realized at some point, multiple times in the past, most recently, probably around the beginning of this year, that sure, I can try and pander to the algorithm and try and get more views and more subscribers, or I can give the current subscribers more of what they want. So I was kind of aiming in that direction. Plus, it was more enjoyable for me. But now that I've gotten a little bit of a break, revisiting that could be a really good move. So, Positive Creators is on, Kyle, Syed, Chantel, and Rutger. What's going on, folks? Good to have everyone on here today. Like I said, it looks like it's just going to be a chill group. So a couple things going on. Number one, I do want to bring your attention to the free challenge that's going on next week. Again, because it's kind of this core group of folks that I think shows up for a lot of these in general. I'm not going to belabor it, but hopefully you've seen it and you've signed up. Let me try to hop over to the screen that will actually show you that. But I'm doing a free challenge starting next week. It's going to be live. I'm going to do 3 live sessions, and boom. I'm going to do 3 live sessions, and the goal is to select a niche that will hopefully have multiple income streams. So generally, and I know there's some students in the course that I have currently, 5-figure niche site, and it's generally oriented around Amazon affiliate sites. Now, after I finish this live stream here, I will be releasing some more information. I have been teasing that I have contacts that basically can hook you up with better affiliate programs than any sort of public ones that are, public facing. So there are companies that help market for the retailers. So Target, Home Depot, whoever. There are companies that basically serve as intermediary between us, the publishers, and the actual company out there, because it's hard for the companies to contact us, and it's harder for us to find a way into the companies. However, there's a group of marketers out there. There's big companies that basically do this. So I have a contact, and it's kind of proprietary information, so I can't share it here, but it's inside Five Figure Niche site, and it's part of the, well, there's no real deal, but basically I know I can bring helpful information to my students, and then the folks that I'm working with, they understand that they don't want a huge flood of just random people. They want to have folks that can come to the table with good content, that sort of have their mind around this stuff. So anyway, what we have here is a free 5-day challenge. There's basically a sales page, but you could sign up for this. You could see some people that you probably recognize from YouTube or this channel, and basically you'll have a crystal clear vision on your niche site. You'll discover multiple sources of revenue within the niche and be able to dissect what others are doing, right and wrong, so that you'll have a blueprint to move forward. And here's sort of the agenda. There's a link in the description. Hope everyone here wants to sign up, and hopefully you will. At the end, right? So this is, the meta version is that this here is sort of the pre-launch for a course. And we tell you right here what is going on. I'm going to hop back over to the other screen here. But basically this is a launch for the course. And again, from a meta perspective, I often would launch my other course with a mini course. I use course a lot of times in that sentence. So mini course. And I would send it out via email. This is a live challenge, so it's a different sort of marketing channel. And in both cases, I'm trying to deliver as much value as I can for free ahead of time, so that hopefully people want to work with me further. At the end of the 5-day challenge, we're launching a course. So I'm putting it together. I'm working with the Internet Marketing Gold group. So if you're unfamiliar with them, it's several smart SEOs put it together. They've been in the industry for many years, and it's a community. There's a free version and there's a paid version. So when you sign up for the challenge, you'll be able to join the free version. And I think there's many hundreds. I think there's a couple thousand or so members in there. And then there's a handful in the premium group where you get premium information and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm working with them because they have a good marketing team. Things sort of came together organically. I have some friends over there. You've probably seen or heard of Kyle Roof and some of the other folks in the group. But Kyle Roof was on my show. He was on a couple other sort of bigger shows. And it just all sort of came together, and we decided to work on this challenge to help the pre-launch. And then you'll probably be hearing more and more about it as we go. And David says, you just signed up. Awesome. You've kind of been waiting on picking your niche in 5-Figure Niche site until the challenge. So very smart. And I think, in conjunction, they work really well together, by the way. And I see Positive Creators has a question. I'll come to that in a few moments here. So I am going to try to hit the sort of agenda topics, and then I'll hit the questions at the end. So thanks everyone for signing up. And just so you know, I'm probably going to go live on Saturday and Sunday, just briefly, to try and get more people to sign up for the free challenge. I haven't done a live challenge like this, so I'm actually going to be running and producing the material like I usually do for these live streams, except people are expecting to learn a lot. And so I'm a little bit nervous. I do have a lot of prepared material, of course. I'm not going to ad-lib anything, and should be good. Hopefully, like I said, fingers crossed, everything technically works out well. The other thing I want to bring up is the Pinterest stuff that I've alluded to a couple times here. So when you're first starting a site, it's harder to get that early traffic to your site. basically because most people aim for Google, right? The best traffic that you can get typically is from Google. It's targeted. Because of the keywords you're targeting on your site, you kind of know what those people are interested in. Thus, you can serve that audience really well. Aim for conversions or aim for providing content, helpful content, so people will click display ads, that sort of thing. So it's fairly well targeted. However, to get Google traffic, you do have to spend some time in the sandbox, usually 6 months for a fresh site. And then you usually have to just age the site more, publish more content, do more work. So the Google traffic takes a little bit longer to build up. One of my students who I was recently catching up with in the last couple of days, she shot me a couple texts, and she's still making 2,200 plus per month as of this past month. So it was May, of course, was the last closeout. And her site first hit $100 in January of 2019. Basically, she goes through and mentions how 20% of her traffic was from Pinterest over the first 10 months. But what I can also add to this, I think it may be in the copy here, so you could follow the link in the description. Basically, most of the traffic to the site was from Pinterest, something like 70 to 80% over the first, I think, 3 months or so. So the exact details may be a tad off, but roughly that's the story. Christy got most of her traffic for the first quarter from Pinterest. And I was like, how are you getting that much traffic so fast? And then she was like, oh, I'm doing this on Pinterest, blah, blah, blah. So she explains it here. And the bigger picture, right? So I was catching up with my friend John Dykstra over at Fat Stacks blog. He's been on the channel many times. In fact, he was telling me about Pinterest a little while back. And I think when I chatted with him, he had not yet reached these huge numbers, but he's getting like 300,000 visitors per month from Pinterest, and he did that over 12 weeks. So I'm going to play a clip here where basically he was able to, the clip, he's just talking about growing Pinterest traffic. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to try to explain too much here. I'll let John talk about it, but he's always sort of dabbled a little bit on the Pinterest side, but as things have grown and escalated, and the fact that there's Google updates all the time, John is just kicking ass on the Pinterest side. So it's pretty amazing overall. And I'm gonna play this clip from one of John's recent interviews. So here it is.
I find there have been times over the years, especially with my biggest niche site, where I almost abdicated. I basically just handed it to a project manager and said, run it. I wouldn't even look at it. And I think that's not a smart thing to do. Things get out of hand, mistakes are made. I think opportunities are missed. So it's my practice now to always sort of at least check in once a day or every other day at a minimum, check what's getting published, spot check things, view things, and then really dig in here and there and look for opportunities. Check out what other sites in the vertical are doing. Just sort of pay attention to what's going on. Just look at things, and that's how you're going to spot the opportunities. And there have been 6 month periods where I've just basically didn't even look at the site. I just let other people run it, and mistakes are made. And I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not saying that the site would have been ruined as a result of that. I just think I'm probably going to enjoy more growth by staying involved and thinking about it and coming up with strategies. For instance, I've had some really good success with Pinterest lately this year, and I'm not the only one. It's nothing that I've worked on some strategies that work within my niche that have worked out really well. Seems like Pinterest is having this really nice resurgence with their whole focus on fresh pins. And I think if you play ball with what they want, I think there's really big opportunity there. And I've more than doubled my traffic from Pinterest within a couple months, which is pretty significant. I'm very happy about that. But that took me really paying attention again, really digging in, taking a look what's going on, trying things. And then, okay, well, I think I've figured out a system that I think is working and some good ideas. Now I can hand it off to some people to just run with it. And so that's worked out well as well.
Can you expand on the Pinterest stuff? I know some of the recent news that I heard was from people that lost traffic from Pinterest. And I think the algorithm change or whatever changed on the Pinterest side impacted them in a negative way, but it sounds like you were doing what they wanted everyone to be doing. So can
Yeah.
you tell us about that?
Pinterest is interesting. I basically ran Pinterest passively for years. I'd have people would visit the site and they would pin to their boards, and I would get traffic that way. I didn't really pin a whole lot proactively myself. I didn't really understand it. I didn't really get it. I never looked into it. And then early this year, I noticed some nice little spikes in traffic from Pinterest, and that really piqued my interest to look more. So what I did is started reading up on it. And yeah, you're right. Pinterest has changed things. I think it was earlier than this year. I'm not sure the exact dates. But basically, Pinterest really wants people to pin fresh content, fresh pins, new images. It used to be the practice people would repin successful pins over and over and over, maybe to different boards and so forth, and keep them on top of the feed or however that worked. That apparently is no longer recommended. And basically, my practice is I will add a new pin. It will be a fresh image. It will be a totally new description, and I will pin it to one board, and that's it. And that's all I'm doing. Now, beyond that, I experiment with the images, a lot of different images and designs and so forth, and that's going to be very niche specific, I think, in terms of what works best there. But it seemed, so basically Pinterest is like back when Google said no duplicate content. Google wants fresh content, good content, high quality content that people like. It seems like Pinterest has followed suit, but from an image perspective. And that's what they want. They want fresh content that people want. They don't want regurgitated or duplicate stuff getting pinned over and over and over. So having really worked with search engines most of my online business life here, the concept of trying to keep things fresh on Pinterest was sort of a natural fit rather than some of the previous algorithms that Pinterest was working. I never really did figure those out, but I didn't try all that hard either. Anyways, I think right now Pinterest has some great opportunities, but I do encourage you to read up on some of the more recent, late 2019 or 2020 blog posts from people who seem to know what they're talking about. There's good info out there about it.
Very good. Yeah, I never got into Pinterest myself. Tested a few things and had some qualified folks help me out, and it never really, pulled in the traffic like I expected. So I eventually pulled the plug and went back to content, something that we both, are comfortable pushing. So, all right. Yeah, that was John, and this is his course. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things here. So I'll actually read a couple things. So if you've read and tried to follow the suggestions of blog posts about Pinterest and you're not getting anywhere, which at the end of that clip, that's exactly kind of the issues that I ran into. I had some VAs that were pretty good and they had some success on Pinterest, but yeah, we never really connected the dots. And it was on a site that should have been really good on Pinterest. Are you getting impatient waiting for Google to send you traffic, or maybe Google traffic is in your wheelhouse already, but you would love to get more and build up a secondary source of traffic? And that's kind of what John is aiming for his sites. It's a great way to get even more traffic out there. Whoa, that zoomed in way too much. Let's pop that in there. Okay. So yeah, you can check it out. And one of the cool things in John's course here, which Marty mentioned that he picked it up, and he shows stats here. One of the best things, I think, is he gives you all of these, I'm going to get to this part, these different pin types that have worked really well. He shows actual examples and a 25-minute step-by-step video, which I think rarely in John's courses, he usually doesn't do videos. They're usually text-based for the most part, maybe a few demos here and there. So pretty cool that he's going through all of that. And like I said, several people have already picked this up. Actually, quite a lot of people have picked this up. I know just from people telling me and shooting me an email actually saying, I've been waiting for this course. And I actually thought about putting out a course on the topic, and I checked with John a while back. This is months ago. It was probably in maybe January, February, maybe a little bit earlier. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do a course. And I was like, I might, I'm not sure. I have some data, but I don't know if it's as good as what, I feel comfortable publishing a course on it. And I looked at maybe bringing someone on who was doing really well at Pinterest to help me produce some of the content. And then eventually I decided I wasn't going to do it. So I'm glad John came along, because people have been hungry for these sort of topics for a while. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my caffeine hiatus. So I usually drink a lot of coffee, and I was trying to think when I first started drinking coffee on a regular basis, and probably like a lot of people, it was once I joined the workforce, maybe even after I was in the workforce for a couple of years, but it's pretty normal to have a coffee break, and it's a reason to jump out of the office. And some places that I've worked, there were Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or other coffee joints very close by. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I used to work in Midtown Atlanta in the what used to be the Bell South building. Now it's the AT&T Tower. Right there on, I know there's probably a couple people from Atlanta, not a ton, but it's right on North Avenue and West Peachtree and Peachtree right there. So right behind the Fox. And yeah, I worked in that building. Actually, now that I'm reminiscing, I had this awesome seat. I was, in my 20s, but I had a cube up on like the 25th floor, or yeah, I think roughly that, upper 20s, a window seat, and you could see the whole, I mean, it was pretty awesome. And I remember thinking, well, this job, it kind of sucks in some ways, but I don't love being here at night, working these long hours. But I would sit at my cube and I would just look out the window. It's a huge, like, floor to ceiling window. Amazing. Anyway, there was a Dunkin' Donuts, and I remember walking down to the Dunkin' Donuts with some friends, and just taking the elevator and walking over there would take, it'd be a 25-minute break to go down and get a coffee. And then there was actually a couple Starbucks down the street. So occasionally when the weather was nice, but not too hot, it'd be cool to walk down to 6th Avenue, hop into the Starbucks there and grab a coffee. So anyway, over time, I started to enjoy coffee more and more, and just other beverages as well. So at one point I got into like roasting coffee and getting more obscure beans, and just really enjoying like fresh coffee. I do pour overs usually. And yeah, just over the last few years, I really love coffee. So I would drink more and more. Probably through my 30s, I ended up drinking more and more, up until the point, I don't know if people know this, but caffeine can make your cholesterol go a little higher if it is unfiltered through a paper filter. So the paper sort of filters out that compound. It's a caffeine related compound, where if you have it in excess, it can make your cholesterol go higher. So at one point, my cholesterol was kind of on the borderline, and I was trying to do research, knowing that I drank a lot of French press coffee. And I realized that, yes, that's actually a thing, but there's not that much data about it, because not that many people drink excessive coffee. So anyway, I moved over to just paper filters, and I was doing pour overs. So I don't do French press, or extremely rare will I do a French press. And the point is, occasionally I would realize that I would drink too much coffee. I do intermittent fasting pretty often, and caffeine really does help suppress your appetite. So if you're intermittent fasting, drinking coffee is usually a pretty awesome crutch to use. And the unfortunate part is, yeah, it's easy to overdo it. And with caffeine, you get this great jolt. I'm sure a lot of people out there drink coffee or tea or some other caffeinated beverage. You get this nice jolt, feels pretty good. It helps you focus a lot of times. And I think I've mentioned so many times, like, hey, my best work's in the morning. Totally true when I'm on caffeine. But if I don't have a coffee in the morning, I realize that I kind of can work anytime through the day. It doesn't matter. And I was using the coffee as a huge crutch, and it would make me really productive in the morning, depending on what I needed to work on. And then I would hit a wall and sort of crash in the afternoon. So basically, like after 2 to 3 p.m., it was really hard for me to produce content like this, or in general, just focus. So yeah, I could kind of keep going if I had more caffeine through the day. But I was realizing, hey man, I'm kind of stressed out. It's been a lot of things going on, and man, I'm just not sleeping as well. So in April and part of May, my sleep was terrible. I was sleeping like maybe 5 to 6 hours per night on average. Occasionally I'd get closer to 8, but I was waking up in the middle of the night. I would have like a burst of energy in the middle of the night at like 3 to 4. So if I woke up, it was really hard for me to go back to sleep. I'd be up for like an hour and a half and really just trashed my sleep. I wasn't sure if it was caffeine, but I knew it wasn't helpful. And then I'm an Audible member. So Audible has like these Audible original books that you can get. I think it's like 2 out of 6. So for free, right? You can get 2 of the 6. And one was published by Michael Pollan and he's like the famous food writer. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of him. So it was on caffeine, mostly coffee because he was a pretty avid coffee drinker, and a little bit on tea, but generally it was about caffeine. And he wrote this, I guess it's a short book, so it's about a 2-hour audiobook, and it was basically his journey on wanting to write about caffeine. He went off of caffeine, I think, for 3 months, and then slowly adding it back. But it was very interesting. And as he was talking about some of the issues, and sleep was one of those, where caffeine just kind of screws up your sleep. Even if you're not drinking like too much, or maybe you're not even having too much late in the day, it can still interfere. And I was drinking it at a level where it was definitely interfering, even though I tried to convince myself that it wasn't. So what I can tell you, let me pull out my phone because I have like an Apple Watch, so it sort of tracks your sleep. And what I can show is, actually it'll be a little bit hard to decipher here, but what I can explain is, like last night, I got 8 hours and 23 minutes, which is pretty good. Anything over like 7 hours is usually pretty good for me. And in the last week, I've been averaging over 8. I feel much better. One night, I guess a couple days ago, on Tuesday, I got over 9 hours, which seems amazing. So basically on my sleep app here, we'll see if this shows up well. Focus up. Green is good. So basically what you have here is, in the last week or so, I've gotten like 75% of the time over 8 hours, a few times close to 9. And then when I look back in May, there's a couple days where I got under 5 hours and a handful under 6. So basically my sleep is through the roof. I'm actually just as productive, I think. I'm getting more rest. And I think one of the byproducts, and I knew this in the past, but basically when I'm not doing well on sleep, this is, there's studies on this, like journal studies, although I don't have any citations for you, but basically if you're not getting enough sleep, your IQ is lower. It's just harder for you to think and process and like be productive. So as all this was sort of coming together, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to kick it for a little while, because I went to visit my parents in Atlanta last week for a few days. They don't drink coffee. It was a natural time for me to just not drink any coffee. So I decided I'm going to start right after or right before I got on the plane. So that was like Sunday, a week and some change ago. So we're coming up on 2 weeks. And I will say that I've slightly cheated. I had decaf, which technically has a little tiny bit of caffeine, but not really that much. It's something like 10 milligrams. So I had decaf, I think, twice since I've been home here. So a couple questions popped through. So I'm going to answer some of those for us here. We'll pop over here. And some questions came through, which I answered in the chat, but I'll mention them to everyone here. All right, we got Anis and Jay. We got Jason on there. Cool. So I'll hit a couple of these questions. We have Tiff and Rock Smith as well. All right. So first question I'm going to hit here is about indexing, and who asked that? So Positive Creators wanted to know about index pages and checking on them. Is it enough when I take a look in Webmaster Console, the search console? Because I have 98 index pages, and on Google, I only find 35. So my question was whether or not the site was young. I think just checking on the search console is sufficient. And if you don't see them when you search, then a lot of times it's a younger site. It's really good to internally link your site all over and have external links. But generally, if you have a young site, sometimes you will see that. Positive Creator says, my site is 3 months old, but the content is there for 2 months. I've already seen 20 to 30 hits daily. So yeah, I think I can trust the console. Cool. So what I would say is, yeah, keep publishing. Anytime when you're in the Google sandbox, that seems to be when this happens. And as you publish more content, maybe you don't need to publish more, but as your site ages, as you get more links, hopefully, and as you get more traffic, hopefully you'll be seeing all those pages indexed and to slowly see more traffic. I mean, this is exactly what the sandbox can do, right? It's just like preventing your site from showing up as much as it should, suppressing the results. And a little deeper into the sandbox question, David asked about when the sandbox period starts. So let's find that question here somewhere. The Google sandbox is 6 months of registering the domain or when the site goes live. So I believe it's generally when you start working on the site. So if you just bought a domain and you didn't do anything to it, I don't think the sandbox period starts. However, if you start publishing often, then I think that's when, good things start happening there. And further, I think each one of the pages has, I call it like a mini sandbox, but basically if you publish something, the longer it ages, like the better that post seems to do. So I kind of feel like there's sort of a mini sandbox for any piece of content, kind of. So the other question was from Rutger, and let me get the exact phrase here. Are other languages like Dutch with smaller demographics and less competition a better start when making a site? I was thinking about doing a Dutch site and later translating it. So I think there will be less competition, but you won't have as much potential for growth in the future. That's totally okay, especially if you're able to switch it over to English and translate it and go from there. But generally, yeah, there's going to be less competition, smaller market, fewer people speak the language, and there's just less people trying to compete for all that. All right. And one question that I see occasionally, and this is sort of a current event topic. One of my students was actually kicked out of Amazon in the Amazon Associate Program in the last few weeks here. And it was because he had some notation about coronavirus and or COVID-19 for some product. So they kicked him out pretty quick. Amazon actually sent out an email saying, don't make any claims, basically tread lightly, just be really careful. So he got kicked out. And fortunately, I got word that he was able to appeal, remove any mention, and I think they're reinstating him. So that's good, but definitely you got to be careful for any of those terms of service out there, especially when it's something with COVID-19. I mean, they literally, I was surprised he put anything like that. Definitely bad idea. Just follow the rules the best you can there. All right, next question coming up here. Anna says, should I put a no follow tag for all my outgoing links or only for Amazon links? I don't do that for any of those links. So it's totally up to you on how you want to handle that, but I don't do any of that. Rutger also asked about rich snippets like schema and AMP, the accelerated mobile pages. Are they crucial to add? No, I've done neither. So I think if your site loads sufficiently fast enough and you're not doing anything complicated, I think you could just skip AMP. I think the more people I talk to, they're just like, don't even bother with it. So I think if you have a fast loading page, you're in good shape and you don't really have to worry about it if it's mobile friendly. And I've been using Carbonate for a couple of the new sites that I've been playing with here. And I think Matt Giovanisi, the creator of that theme, he's like, yeah, I don't worry about it either. I kind of remember us talking about it in our interview. So anyway, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. And I think the schema can be good to add. I've heard people have some good results, and then I've heard some other sort of mixed results. So I haven't spent any time on it myself. So you can kind of look at it and decide for yourself on whether you want to spend the time on it or not. All right. Next is around Haro. So Rocksmith says, can I shed some light on Haro link building? I'm struggling with it. So I actually think that Kyle, who's on here, who said hello earlier, he's actually doing really well with Haro. So soon I'm probably going to do some content on that. It'll probably be in the form of a podcast. So everyone check out my podcast, Doug.Show. That's the URL. I think there's probably, most likely, a link in the description. I can't remember. But I talked about Haro and how I've heard mostly people are not doing very good with Haro, and they like try to do it, but they don't know what they're doing. Kyle mentioned to me that he does know what he's doing, and he's had some pretty good luck with it. So I think as I've talked to other people, I know some people, a handful, have been able to do well with Haro, but typically they've obviously spent time to figure out how to do it, and I don't have any experience with it. So I generally don't talk about it, which is, I think it's probably a smart move. I don't talk about it other than anecdotally. I've heard most people end up not getting much traction, but Kyle's worked out a system that works really well for him. So, and he sent me a bunch of details. He was like, hey man, you seemed like you didn't think Haro was working, but it can work well. And he sent me a lot of details about it. So hopefully it's fine that I mentioned it here, Kyle. Hope so. All right. Positive Creator says your offer today. You're excited about the 5-day challenge. Yeah, so everyone, if you're joining late, check out the link for the 5-day challenge. So, Comfort Home Inc. says, is it normal when you use the KGR that the search results will change? I found a keyword and the page results were 4, and a day later it was 94. I have heard this, and I'm assuming you're talking about for the all-in title. I've heard this, and I haven't noticed it very much myself. I've seen it a tiny bit, but like 1 or 2% of the time, super rare. I have heard people say, yeah, I check different times a day from different locations and different IP addresses, and I get much different results. So I have heard about that, but usually I just check it once and move forward. Generally. Amin says, Amin has been featured a couple times with questions on the Doug Show podcast. So Amin says, I had the same experience last Ramadan. Since I was fasting the whole day, I drink coffee at night, and you notice it got harder and harder to sleep right away. Once you stop drinking coffee at night, your sleep schedule got back to normal. And what I'll say is, being off of caffeine has been pretty awesome, but I love coffee and just having it in general. I like tea and just, I like this stuff. Right. And I wasn't thinking, cause some people are they're like, I'm off of caffeine. I'm going to be off of it forever. I was really curious to see what it would be like to just be off of it, to see if the sleep improved, to see like cognitively how I was going to function differently, what changes would happen. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it up for like a full month. 2 weeks seems pretty good. I mean, I see the sleep is dramatically better. And I know I was probably drinking too much caffeine, number one. And caffeine has to process through your system. So if you have, say, 1 cup of coffee at 3 p.m, but you didn't have any coffee earlier in the day, perhaps it wouldn't really interfere with your sleep too much. But if you were drinking coffee all day long and then you had a little coffee at 3 p.m., probably it's going to screw up your sleep. So the cumulative effect that I was experiencing was probably the main issue, because I just had like a sheer volume of caffeine that was too high for my system to process. So I think probably if I have, and I've talked to a couple people who mentioned this to me, they'll just have 1 cup in the morning, and then it's, 75, 80% out of their system by sleep time. So that's one of the keys. And I think I want to say it was something like most people, right? People process caffeine at a different speed, but most people can process what would the numbers be? So within 6 hours, you would process like 75 to 80% of 1 cup of coffee. So that's like 100 milligrams. So when you go to sleep, 6 hours later, you would still have 25 milligrams of caffeine in your system, if I said that right. But basically it stays in your system longer, and I was drinking too much through the day. So I think I'll probably aim for like either like half calf, half decaf, 1 cup in the morning, some days of the week, and then see how it goes. I will probably like very slowly bring it back on, and I'll probably never go back to making, because I would make like a full carafe. I would make like a liter plus of coffee in the morning, and then like just drink a ton of it. So I think that was the main issue. And as I mentioned before, I think my productivity has been fine, and I'm a little bit less stressed out, and I'm also thinking faster because I'm getting enough sleep. So it's been a good move, like completely overall, at least, especially just from the experience of like just trying to kick it. And I luckily didn't experience any side effects, no major withdrawal. Some people have like depression, lack of motivation, headaches, like just flu-like symptoms, like some fairly significant problems. But I was just, in the mornings, I was like, I don't have quite as much energy, but I'm also like not as stressed out, which is nice. All right, got a few more people coming back in. We got Paul. Joe popped in, and Joe says that he stopped drinking coffee a few days ago, and it's been amazing. Yeah, so if you want to add any other details, Joe, that'd be great. And we could thank Joe for, he actually sent a donation to the channel, and I actually bought the battery pack that I'm using right there, and it's allowing me to go live like this through the much better camera. So you thank Joe for that. And if you have a chance, you could hit the thumbs up. Helps people find the channel. And actually, if you want to do a favor, there's 2 things, right? I don't ask for a ton. I usually do these things. I answer all the questions, hang out for a while. You have to listen to some random stories, as you know. But if you want to help out, you can leave comments on other videos on my channel. You don't have to say anything profound. I asked for this a couple weeks ago, and I remember several people went over to the videos. They left comments. It was fantastic, and I appreciate everyone doing that. I'm going to try and do better on getting some answers to the comments, but if you comment and like the videos on the channel, again, they don't have to be long comments, just like, hey, enjoyed the video. Those interactions, super helpful for me on the YouTube side. So I thank you for that. And the other is I want more listeners for the podcast. If podcasts are not your thing, totally understand. Some people like them, and if you know someone that may like them, or maybe you haven't checked it out yourself, Doug.Show, please subscribe. I talk about the same kind of stuff. There's a ton. There's actually more success stories, I think, on the podcast side. So if you check it out over there, people actually listen to them again and again, and you can say follow along with someone like Marty McLeod, who was on episode 2, and then on, I think, 5 other episodes where you're sort of tracking along someone's progress over the course of years. So super cool. All right. David says, why is there a difference between the French press and the pour over? All right. See, if I talk about stuff enough, people start asking questions about it. Then I can just talk about whatever I want. So perfect. Excellent question, David. A French press uses a wire mesh. So everything's not filtered out. You end up with like more body some people will just have a thicker mouthfeel. So thicker body. Some people like that more substantial, sort of more, I would say, robust flavor. And some people don't like it. But the difference is the pour over, you're using a paper filter. The paper filter is finer than the stainless steel mesh. So the paper filter will take out that, I think it's called a caffeinoid. So there's a caffeinoid compound that if you have it in excess can elevate your cholesterol. So at that time, when I discovered this, as I was trying to do research, my cholesterol was like 225, I think. It was kind of like right on the edge where they're going to start doing stuff and trying to give you more drugs, right? They're going to try and give you some prescriptions to get your cholesterol down. High cholesterol like runs in my family. And since then, I was like slowly trying to figure out how to lower my cholesterol. Turns out, well, I was eating terrible. I used to actually exercise more than I do now, but I was eating terrible. I was eating too much, and it was just kind of all food related. So over the past couple years, I've been eating a little bit less, exercising a little bit less as well. I used to run a lot more. But here in the last couple of years, I've been intermittent fasting, and eating less carbs. So intermittent fasting, a little bit less carbs. I still eat carbs and drink a bunch of beer, but I think the big thing is that intermittent fasting. So my cholesterol is under 180 right now, and I'm not on anything. It was just basically diet, mostly fasting. All right, next. Paul says, I recommend gluten-free diet to avoid energy crashes. And yeah, I think that would be too tough for me. I have reduced the gluten quite a bit, just not eating as much bread, but I don't typically don't have any issues with like gluten specifically, but carbs in general. So usually the first meal of the day, very low in carbs. Not always, but often. It's very low in carbs. Those days, like on the weekend, I may make some pancakes, have like sort of a sugary, high carb breakfast. I feel like a zombie for 4 hours until that works itself out. So definitely carbs in general. But yeah, I bet it has a lot to do with glutens, because typically the carbs that I am having are gluten related when I have those energy issues. But actually fasting, I feel pretty good. Oh, and Hayden, excuse me. Hayden says that I stopped drinking coffee for a few months. Tea helped, but now I'm back on the grind. But that's because I've been working 10 to 12 hours a day. Yep. And I think like one interesting thing, I was not doing myself any favor. So I was drinking quite a bit of coffee, and then I take nootropics. So I think there's a link in the description for formula. So I take formula, and I think there's 100 milligrams of caffeine in that. So I was stacking even more caffeine on. That's like 1 cup of coffee, like instantly. But the cool thing is with formula, you can get it without caffeine. So I just put an order in, emailed the owner, Dan, like, hey, I don't want caffeine in this order. I'm not doing caffeine right now. So yeah, it's a great, caffeine's awesome, but you definitely, like in excess, it'll trash you. Oh, and Paul says that I just ate a pancake and have a crash. You're watching this live like you're on drugs. Joe mentions about coffee. You felt like coffee was the sludge in the system. You'll start drinking green tea as a substitute. Yep. And I was going to say, I enjoy green tea, black tea as well. I love chai tea, actually. And one of the other things that I guess I have some right now, but it's the green tea, the matcha tea, which is like the powdered stuff, which is pretty tasty. And generally, the caffeine is way lower for green tea. I think black tea is a little bit higher, and but still way less, something like half compared to coffee. So let's see here. Any other questions out there? I'm looking through my notes to make sure I got everything. Probably did. pop back to this screen. Oh, you know what? I can play a few more clips. I actually downloaded a couple earlier just for this occasion. So a while back, I interviewed my buddy Alex Cooper at WP Eagle. I know a lot of people probably found me through Alex, and he helped me out when I had a tiny little channel. I think I had 1,500 subscribers or something, and he had 20,000 or something. And he was like, sure, we can collab. So we chatted a little bit, and he's been a great ally for me and just really helped me out when he didn't know who I was at all. So here's Alex talking about his affiliate site, Best Roof Box. He has like 85 articles or more at this point. So this is from, I think it could be up to 2 months old, but still fairly accurate. And of course, the whole interview is out there. So here's Alex.
Okay, we're up to about 85. I've got a few more in the queue at the moment. They're just being edited and being written and whatever. I'm trying to add maybe 5 every couple of weeks, something like that. It really depends on my workload and how quickly my writers can get stuff over to me. I've got a big list of stuff that I want written. It's just a case of getting it written and getting it edited. I only have one editor at the moment and one writer, so it's a bit slow. But yeah, just regularly putting the content out. I mean, I've got the ambition of maybe getting it up to 200, 300, 400 articles. I don't know, as big as I possibly can. As I said, there is limitless really ideas in terms of the content that I can produce around roof boxes.
Very good. And it sounds like most of them are sort of product focused. Do you know the percentage of like product versus informational type content?
I'd say it's probably at least 85% product focused.
Okay.
Cool. There are a few articles that aren't roof boxes reduced. Aren't roof box focused, but I'm just trying to see if any of them are performing well in my analytics. Not really, no. They are generally all product focused. They're buyer's guides, I'd say.
How long are most of the buyer's guides?
They're between 1,000 and 2,000 words, something like that.
Okay. And have you experimented with like shorter content under 1,000 or very long content, maybe over 3,000 words? Just curious.
Yeah, I've got a few that are short, maybe 500-600 words. I've not got a couple of them, not more than a couple of them. I've got a couple of long ones. I did a big guide on Thule, which is a big manufacturer of roof boxes. That seems to be doing okay, so I called that the ultimate guide to the Thule roof boxes, because I noticed there are a lot of questions in Google all around Thule, like are they waterproof? How do they make them? How do you pronounce Thule? All those. Was it Thule or Thule? I don't know. So I thought I'd package all those questions together into one article and call it the ultimate guide. But yeah, that's like 14th on my list of content that's pulling in traffic. So I don't know whether it's worth always investing in these longer articles. I don't know. I'm still kind of finding my feet, I guess.
Sure. And then, well, you sort of described like that particular ultimate guide. It sounded like you just did research on the questions and then answered those. Is that usually how you format such a guide, or was it that a one-off case?
That's normally how I'd approach it. Yeah, I'd see a lot of questions around a particular theme, and then I'd just use that as the subheadings within an article. So yeah, I could have had maybe 4 or 5 600-word articles, but I thought in that particular case, I'd just put them all together into one and see what happens. Because I was hoping that quite often you see when people do a search on Google with a question, sometimes it's not the main title of that article that comes up, but there'll be a hot link on Google or a quick link that jumps you straight to that question on that article. And that's what I was kind of hoping to get, that kind of that extra little link that you get on Google where it's got the article, but then it's got, skip straight to the answer to this question.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I've achieved it on that article. I probably need to look into it a bit more detail. But yeah, it's
Sure.
bringing in some traffic and it seems to be doing the business.
Very good. Yeah, so if you want to check out more stuff from Alex, head over to WP Eagle, and I'm sure almost everybody already knows Alex that's watching this right now. Got a good question in from Andis. From the beginning, I was using Thrive Architect. All my posts are using Thrive Architect. Now my theme is old and I want to upgrade it or use a new theme, but I'm afraid it will impact all the designs. And also, what about rankings? Will it impact any rankings? So I do encourage you to move off of Thrive Architect, it's kind of slow. It's frustrating to use. It drove me crazy. People that have watched the channel for a while have heard me rant on it. It's funny, I'm still an affiliate because like some people still, want to check out Thrive and use it, but I don't actively promote it or do anything with it. The problem with a lot of those page builder type of applications, they're just slower to work with. And most of the time, you don't need all of that. So I talked about Carbonate earlier. There's a link in the description. It's one of the smallest themes that I've ever seen. It's a good framework. Bare bones, it'll do the job. You're probably going to find you want a little extra here and there, but you can potentially work with someone to help you get some CSS together. Like Marty in the chat here has helped me with the CSS. I needed just a couple little formatting things. And as I'm going, I'll probably find more gaps and think, hey, I need a little help. I just want to redesign this thing. So it's a good way if you're interested to learn about CSS, because most of this you can Google, you can search guides, and then you can go look at other people's sites and think, oh, how did they do that CSS? And the code's right there. You can sort of reverse engineer it by inspecting the elements in Chrome, probably in Firefox and other apps too, but other browsers. But basically you can kind of reverse engineer what people are doing with their CSS. Now, the problem with Thrive Architect is there's so much, they call it cruft, right? There's so much garbage in the code that when you move to another theme, it's still going to be there unless you go and remove it, most likely. I tried to copy and paste just I guess you would call it the web page, not the source, but I would just copy the web page and I would try and paste it into just a plain WordPress post or page. And it ended up with all the extra formatting. So you can remove a lot of it, but a lot of it still stays in place. The bigger issue is depending on what Thrive theme, or if you're only using Thrive Architect, you're going to have some trouble with short codes most likely. Now, there could be a couple versions or ways that you put your site together where you may be impacted less. If there are not many short codes in there and it's mostly just code based, you could be okay. But if you use the Thrive theme along with the architect, then you could have a lot of short codes in there. I've used both, by the way. I've used the themes and architect, and at the time that I was using them, it was a good solution for the specific thing that I was doing. But I got to the point with Thrive Architect where I was trying to do some simple changes, and I think maybe they upgraded to a new version, and when I upgraded it, a lot of things stopped working. So I was trying to do a simple thing like change the format of some text and maybe change the text of the price for a product, and I couldn't change it. So at that point I was like, I have to get off of this. So I pulled the plug at that point and moved away from it. So I think it's on one site still for one sales page that I haven't migrated over, but I should. So all right, we're coming up towards the end here. And any other questions? I'll just give a quick summary, quick plug for the couple things that we got going on. So number one, we have the 5-day challenge coming up next week. There's a link in the description. I'm working with the Internet Marketing Gold crew. It's internetmarketing.gold. And basically, we're going to be looking for niches, and I'm going to help you figure out how to find a niche for yourself over the course of 5 days that will should have multiple revenue streams. So again, typically I've talked about Amazon associate marketing for a very long time, and it's still a good option. It's probably a lower potential earnings potential in the long run. However, even if you start an Amazon affiliate site now, you'll be able, most likely, to add other affiliate programs, other monetizations into that site. So whether there's a lot of people that are in 5-figure niche site, and it's just a matter of like pivoting a little bit. That's what a lot of folks are doing. So The other thing is the Pinterest course by John Dykstra. He's been on the channel a ton, very popular guest. His courses are hugely popular. I'm amazed at the number of people that are just enrolling, taking advantage of it, the people that find me because they're in his courses. So it's a great group of people. You get access to the forum that he has, and definitely check it out if you're interested in Pinterest. Link in the description. 50% off. It's under $100 until the end of the day on Sunday. All right. David says this. Really off topic. No, I love it. I love off topic. It's good. You mentioned the photos on your left are metal. Are you an affiliate for a site that does them? No, I'm not. That's funny you ask. But I was going to say, so this one's metal. This is, that is Morning Glory. It's near the Old Faithful area in Yellowstone. I can come over here and it'll be a little more in focus. There. Those four are actually, it's like foam board. It's and they're magnetic. Check this out. So there's like a little magnet on the back there, and they're super light. You can see they're pretty thin. And this is at Newport Beach, Oregon, by the way. That's Georgie standing in front of me. It's a pretty cool picture. My wife gave me these four. But no, I'm not yet an affiliate. But I was going to say a couple people have asked, and yeah, I think the cool thing is with the metal, it's so like saturated. It's such a good color over a canvas. So let me show you one other here. So this one here is metal, and this is a hike called Lava Lake out of the Bozeman area. And there, when the focus catches, and it looks just freaking amazing. And that is on the highway between Bozeman and Big Sky. And it's about a 3-mile hike. But yeah, these metal frames are awesome. I'll have to hang that up later. So cool. Oh, and Paul says you miss Bozeman videos. Yeah, you know what? I miss Bozeman just in general. Pretty awesome in the summer. A little cooler. It's going to be like 90, 95 today. Very warm here. But I should actually do a couple like Longmont videos. Longmont's pretty cool. Longmont's pretty fun. But yeah, the Bozeman videos, those were good. We're actually going hiking in the park today. So Rocky Mountain National Park, pretty close by. And we got word that they're opening, I think they opened back up, or Trail Ridge Road opened back up on June 4th. So just yesterday. And we have an annual national park pass. We were going into Yellowstone often when we were up in Bozeman. And I love Rocky Mountain National Park. It's only about 45 minutes away, something like that. So anyway, we're going to go on a hike, probably in the Bear Lake area. So cool. All right, I think I'm going to call it a day. And I think we hit most of the questions. Oh, Paul has one more. Do I work on weekends? Not usually, but with the course material that I'm putting together, I'll probably work one day this week or this weekend. And typically I may do like a couple hours here and there, but it depends on what you consider work. Sometimes I may shoot a little video, a vlog or something like that, but usually that's more leisurely. And because, yeah, typically I don't do a ton on the weekends though. And usually Fridays are half day-ish, depending on how it goes. And I try not to schedule anything other than this on Fridays, and I don't schedule anything on Mondays. So it doesn't mean I don't work, but I try not to schedule any meetings or anything like that. So cool. Everybody have a good weekend. We'll see you on the challenge coming up. And I mentioned before, you'll probably see me go live a couple times this weekend just to try to get some more folks on the free challenge. Feel free to share that link around, by the way. Share that link around. All right. See you later, everybody.